Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to say thank you for keeping it locked here. For our returning subscribers, thank you once again, and if you are new here, consider subscribing and hit the notification bell below and you will be notified when new videos are uploaded. In today's video, we are going to do a comparison of both Kenya and Ethiopia's economy as they are likely to surpass other African countries. But remember, data inventory and updates. A country comparison like this can be based on several hundred individual data items from dozens of different sources. All data are based on the most recent data available to us. Most of them refer to the previous year and are updated around March of the following year. If a country has not yet published data for the most recent or penultimate year, we present the most recent official data. Updates are made on an ongoing basis depending on the subject area or source, so there is no single, cutoff date, for this comparison. Sources for almost all data can be found on our respective country pages. Ethiopia and Kenya to become sub-Sahara's third and fourth largest economies after Nigeria and South Africa according to IMF. The struggle for economic supremacy between Kenya and Ethiopia has largely been a competition for foreign investment in industrial and agricultural sectors, with South Africa and Ethiopia having an edge in attracting foreign capital. Even as Ethiopia extends its lead, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) predicts that Kenya's GDP will grow larger than Angola's this year. According to the IMF's most recent World Economic Outlook, Angola's gross domestic product (GDP) would decline throughout the time, allowing Kenya to pass it and move up to fourth place behind Ethiopia thanks to its anticipated 5.3% economic growth. Ethiopia, however, is now anticipated to surpass both Angola and Kenya to become the third biggest economy in sub-Saharan Africa, although the IMF had previously predicted that it would surpass Kenya to become Eastern Africa's largest economy in its October 2022 forecast. Ethiopia's advantage over Kenya grew when the IMF increased its prior estimate of the country's GDP in 2023 from $126 billion to $156.1 billion. Absent superpowers like Morocco and Egypt, 46 of the 54 nations on the continent are found in sub-Saharan Africa. With a GDP of $506.6 billion in current prices, Nigeria continues to have the largest economy in the area, followed by South Africa, $399 billion, and Ethiopia, $156.1 billion. The IMF had estimated Kenya's GDP to reach around $15.7 trillion, $1,117.6 billion, in size in October of last year, but this has subsequently been revised slightly upward to $15.8 trillion, $118.1 billion in the April 2023 projection. Between Kenya and Ethiopia, the struggle for economic supremacy in Eastern Africa has mostly been a struggle to draw in foreign investment, particularly in the industrial and agricultural sectors. Addis Ababa is expected to keep stretching this lead up to the end of 2028, the IMF projections show. So far, South Africa and Ethiopia have fared better than Kenya in attracting foreign investments, eyeing a population that has more cash to spend. The IMF does not expect Kenya to stay longer at the third position, with Angola projected to regain the position next year before Nairobi overtakes it again in 2027. Initially, the IMF had projected Angola's GDP this year to be at $135 billion, making it the third largest economy ahead of Ethiopia. The global lender has, however, not revised its estimates for 2022, which showed that the West African nation had overtaken Nairobi to become the region's third largest economy. A return to growth linked to higher oil prices saw Angola overtake Kenya last year, according to the IMF's projections in October last year. This is after the nation, which is the continent's second largest oil producer after Nigeria, ended years of recession to reclaim its third position in 2022. Angola lost this position to Kenya in 2020 following years of contraction due to a slump in oil prices. Most forecasters have projected Ethiopia's real GDP growth at above 6%, which, although higher than last year, is still significantly below the pre-COVID-19 growth rate of 9% registered in 2019, according to a report by the World Bank. Kenya, the World Bank report noted, is one of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, which is growing at a faster rate than their long-term rates, with the global lender estimating that the country's real GDP expanded at 5.2% in 2022. Thanks to strengthened manufacturing, improved investor confidence supported by the credibility of the new administration's President William Ruto's plan to stabilize public finances and a more general improvement in risk appetite, said the World Bank. The report said Ethiopian economy was last year held back by high inflation, currency depreciation, and the lingering conflict. Failed rains in the first half of 2022 weighed on agricultural activity, with significant losses in livestock and crops. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) has projected that the size of Kenya's economy will overtake that of Angola this year even as Ethiopia stretches its lead. In its latest World Economic Outlook, the IMF says gross domestic product (GDP) of Angola, an oil producer, will shrink during the period, allowing Kenya, whose economy is expected to grow by 5.3%, to overtake it and perch itself at the fourth spot behind Ethiopia. However, Ethiopia, which the IMF had projected in its October 2022 outlook would overtake Kenya to become Eastern Africa's largest economy, is now expected to overtake both Angola and Kenya to become the third largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa. This is after the IMF revised its earlier forecast on Ethiopia's GDP in 2023 from $16.9 trillion, $126 billion, to $20.9 trillion, $156.1 billion, stretching its newfound lead over Kenya. Sub-Saharan Africa accounts for 46 of the continent's 54 countries, excluding giants such as Morocco and Egypt. Nigeria remains the largest economy in the region with a GDP, in current prices, of $506.6 billion, followed by South Africa, $399 billion, and Ethiopia, $156.1 billion. In October last year, the Washington-based institution had projected the size of Kenya's economy at around $15.7 trillion, $117.6 billion, but has since been revised slightly upwards to $15.8 trillion, $118.1 billion, in the April 2023 outlook. The fight for the economic dominance of Eastern Africa's region between Kenya and Ethiopia has essentially been a contest for the attraction of investments, especially in the agriculture and manufacturing sectors. For example, both countries are major producers of coffee, tea and flowers. They are also keen to shore up their value addition by rebooting their textile and apparel sectors. The attraction of foreign direct investment (FDI) is critical in easing growing youth unemployment in Africa. For instance, both nations significantly produce flowers, coffee, and tea. Additionally, they are eager to strengthen their value addition by reviving their garment and textile industries. In order to reduce the rising rate of young unemployment in Africa, it is essential to attract foreign direct investment (FDI). So far, South Africa and Ethiopia have done better than Kenya in luring foreign capital interested in a populace with higher disposable income. The third place won't be held by Kenya for very long, according to the IMF, as Angola is predicted to reclaim it next year until Nairobi overtakes it once more in 2027. Prior to Ethiopia, Angola was predicted to have a GDP of $135 billion this year by the IMF, placing it as the third largest economy. However, the global lender has not updated its projections for 2022, which stated that the West African country had surpassed Nairobi to become the third largest economy in the area. Angola surpassed Kenya last year as a result of a recovery in GDP driven by increased oil prices, according to IMF predictions released in October 2022. This country comparison is a concise, tabular overview of numerous data from the respective country pages for Ethiopia and Kenya. There, the researchers provide many explanations and details per country that go far beyond this comparison. Data inventory and updates. A country comparison like this can be based on several hundred individual data items from dozens of different sources. All data are based on the most recent data available to us. Most of them refer to the previous year and are updated around March of the following year. If a country has not yet published data for the most recent or penultimate year, we present the most recent official data. Updates are made on an ongoing basis depending on the subject area or source, so there is no single, cutoff date, for this comparison. Sources for almost all data can be found on our respective country pages.